HCP for Cloud Scale is a Linux-based operating system which presents itself in the form of a web GUI that allows you to manage objects stored to HCP Cloud Scale. If you notice on the screen, we have three different blocks. One is the object storage management, the S3 console, and system management. System management, I'm not going to go into, but I will just let you know that this is where you're going to control the number of nodes or the number of instances of servers. You're going to be able to connect to Active Directory or another identity provider, create roles, groups, all of the things that you may need to give you the granularity of access to the system. The system itself is different from our classic HCP in that it is modified to run more efficiently in web services environments. So it can run in AWS, it can run as VMs running within an ESXi environment, or it could run on hardware. Whichever way that you want to deploy it, you can do that. The value, though, is that it can be scaled up to a very large footprint for large jobs and then scaled back down for day-to-day types of management. So the system management is really where you configure a lot of the networking and Active Directory pieces, as well as all of your different web services. You can monitor those within the system management system. The other two areas is where you'll spend the lion's share of your time. The first being the object storage management section. And once the system has been up and configured, the object storage area is where you're going to reach out and you're going to connect this system to S3 storage. That S3 storage can be in the form of Amazon S3. It can be internal S3 storage. What I've actually done, ironically enough, is taken a classic HCP, turned on S3 on a given namespace, and that is my S3 target. And so the way that you would do it is you just come here to add storage component. You would walk through the wizard, and the wizard will allow you to go ahead and select different components. And what you'll see is when we select the components, this is what we offer. Either Amazon S3, HCP S3, which is what I've done, or our HCP S Series S3. This is our chassis of erasure encoded drives that have RAID protection, can tolerate multiple failures, very dense storage at a low cost point. We offer this as our S Series S11 or our S31, and those are really just scalable to different amounts of storage. And then we have just a generic S3, which would cover probably most of the S3 providers out there. Once you've gone through the wizard, put your region host, access key, security key, go ahead and set up the storage. And then once the storage is established, then you'll go ahead and verify that storage. And what you'll see here is this is actually active storage right now. Once the storage is set up, really not a lot of need to come back to this interface. You can use it as a dashboard to kind of monitor existing amounts of S3 storage that you have. And if you do need alert set, you can do that to warn of running out of S3 storage. That type of thing is what you would do here. So this is the object storage connectivity to the S3. Even though HCP Cloud Scale is an object storage device, it still does require some form of S3 storage. Once again, that would be either external in the form of an Amazon S3 or internal in the form of any S3 storage that you happen to have lying around. Okay. The other element that I wanted to spend some time in here is the S3 console. And what you'll see when I log into this is we have an area for you to be able to create buckets and or generate credentials for those buckets. And what you'll see here is I have a series of previous demos that I've done, and then I just created one here called the CS demo, and I've just drag and dropped 28 objects into this particular bucket. So now what this is this is a bucket that resides within the S3 storage that I just allocated in my previous step. If I click on the actual bucket, what you'll see is I get a browser. I get to see all of the objects that are within this particular bucket. I also can click on a show deleted objects. That'd show me anything that was recently deleted. I happen to turn on object lock on this bucket. So we are definitely in a compliance kind of mode where deletions will be retained and versions will be retained. The original object will remain locked and untampered with, but that's not to say that new versions of objects cannot be created, and those would be viewable from here as well. We get an overview. This is kind of a dashboard of objects that have been ingested. We get a date picker with a live is the default, and then you can go back and see different snapshots in time. The Properties tab is really where a lot of your policy is conducted. Because the classic HCP was a system that operated on the principle of a large amount of storage logically segregated into different tenants, and then within those tenants you would have namespaces of which could be turned into buckets. We pretty much say if you activate the S3 protocol, we then call those namespaces buckets. Within CloudScale, we've streamlined so much of it to make it work optimally in the cloud without back-end networks and those types of things. What we've done is we've just said this is one large storage platform with object management. You can turn on policies for your various buckets, but we're pretty much doing it at a global level and then right at the bucket level. With these buckets in classic HCP, you had concepts of replication. That would be replication between two sites, between multiple sites, what have you. With CloudScale, what we're doing is we're giving you sync to replication and sync from replication. And so this is the process of enabling you to replicate to a remote S3 target. Namely, I may have this one internally on some internal S3 storage that I have, but I want to sync a replica off to Amazon S3. This is something that can be done. So a sync to can be done, or a sync from could be done. So you could utilize CloudScale as a replica target from existing external cloud provider S3 storage, or originate the objects here within CloudScale and then replicate that off to an external site. You'll see that we have the ability to turn on different permissions, have the ability to configure expiration life cycles. You can add various rules to this bucket. Expire current versions of objects, you can turn that on. Permanently delete previous versions, delete incomplete multi-part uploads, and then delete expired object delete markers. So these are all expiration lifecycle policies that you can set. You can also, coming back to that, go ahead and create your sync to, sync from rule sets. So for example, just coming over on the sync from, you can add a rule, and then those rules can be applied to the remote bucket. You put in your credentials, it reaches out to it, and then you can then set up that policy of having the system remotely replicate back to the system. And then lastly, what you'll notice is we have the ability underneath here to set object lock. And what you'll see I did is I actually set an object lock with a default retention of 100 days. That means that the system is in compliance mode, meaning objects can be written to this bucket. Their retention period by default is going to be 100 days. those 100 days, if anything's deleted, nothing can be deleted within the 100 days. After that, the objects can be deleted, but then we would fall back to the deletion stub policy that you may have on the system, and those deleted records could remain as long as the deletion policy is set up. And so these are just some things that you can do as rule-based sets to apply to the bucket. You can create it as access level private, authenticated, or unauthenticated, which is just open. Set up object lock or not, and then set your various permissions from this point on. Backing up, we go back to our view of all of our buckets. From here, we can create additional buckets or generate those credentials and kind of look at the overall size of our buckets, what we have going on. And then of course, from here, you would be able to back out and go back to the interface where you have access to all 3 levels. And that's it. That is the Hitachi Content Platform Cloud Scale version. Thank you.